Hi everyone, welcome back to Creative Design and Compositing. We're already on week 4 of the class, and this week I'm going to show you how to use the brush tool and the clone tool. And I think the fun way to show you how to use these two tools is actually to create an illustration in Photoshop. So here's some examples that I found on Pinterest. You can see how they took a sketch and digitalized it, and I'll show you how to do this. And here are some more examples of that as well. And this is the example that I will show you how to create. I made it into an invitation card, but you have the option of making a card like I did, or you can have a fun illustration that you can use as a postcard. So for the homework, what I'd like you to do is sketch an illustration and digitalize it. And then we'll use the appropriate Adobe tools such as Illustrator or Photoshop to bring your sketch to life. And you'll do the finishing touches on Photoshop. So some hints I want to give you is, first, I suggest that you do some thorough research of the style that you want to create and of other inspirational designs out there. I don't suggest that you just sketch it from your brain right away and then digitalize it and be done with the homework. I think that you should definitely go out onto Pinterest or Behance and pick a style that you like and try to mimic that style, or try to combine two different styles that are out there and see what you can come up with. Another thing I suggest is that when you do your sketches, sketch it multiple times. Don't be happy with the first thing that you land on, because more likely than not, you will be able to sketch something cooler on your 10th try than your first. So what I did first was I sketched this illustration on a piece of paper, and because I didn't have a scanner, what I did was I took a photograph of it flat on the desk, and I transferred the photograph onto my computer. And I'm going to work with this sketch from here. So what I would do now is I will open this sketch on Illustrator. And when I have it open in Illustrator, I'm going to use something called Image Trace. So you can find it here when you have the image selected, or if you don't have it there, you can go into Windows and click on Image Trace right here. And this window should come up. So what I do is first I just click Trace. And you can see here that it gets rid of all the background and it only leaves the sketches that I have. So depending on what you use to sketch, you might need to go a little bit more. If you go too much, you'll see what happens. You start picking up on these other shadows, which I don't want. So I'll probably try to go back to where I was. And after you click Trace, it's important to click on Expand. So do you see what it did there? So before I clicked on Expand, it was just still a image like this, but once I click this, it selects the sketch as a individual vector line. So what I do now is I know that from experience that there's actually white fill in these objects, and I don't want that when I transfer it into Photoshop. So what I would do is I would go onto the direct selection tool, click on one of the white spots, and if I click this, this is called selecting similar objects. So when I click this, it's going to click on all the whites that are in this illustration. And I know that because once I move it like this and say that I've changed the swatch color to something more visible, yeah, it picked up on all of this. And I want to just delete this. Oops. So I want to just delete that. And now I know that I only have the white or the black line selected, and I want to bring this into Photoshop. I'm going to copy it, open Photoshop, create new. I'm going to create a print document that is 8.5 by 5.5. So it's half of a 8.5 by 11 sheet, US letter size is what I'm trying to say. So here, now I have this where I want the card to be, and I can paste what I just created on Illustrator, adjust the size a little bit, And now what I want is obviously to build those layers that I had on the previous example. So I might start by adding a background color. So none of these colors I'm that happy with on this swatches. So what I did for the example that I showed earlier is I actually found something that I liked as a color palette, and I eyedropped it, but just for this example I'll just use the ones here. And now what I do is I'll add a layer and go to the brush tool and select the hard round brush. It's a little bit big, so I'm going to use the square bracket, shrink it, and start coloring in where I want it to be white. So if you wanted to have like a bit more of a sketchy feeling, you don't have to stay within the lines. I actually didn't on the one before, so I'm gonna do the same here. And shrink it a little bit to color in the tail. So yeah, it depends on what you're going for. If you want a clean edge feeling, of course you shouldn't just do this, but if you want. And here you can also go back and use the eraser tool and erase where you don't want it. If you make a mistake. Perfect. And on the example, I also had some lines on the cat, like so. So what I did was I didn't use this brush. I used one that actually was a hard round brush but had tips that were tapered off like this. Created a new layer. If maybe I don't want this black, so I'm gonna use this FX color overlay and overlay a different color. Maybe I want it a little bit dark blue, like that. Perfect. And I'm going to use this dark blue, same dark blue, and I created a new layer here, you can see, and kind of do this to draw in the lines on the cat. I also drew in some toes. For the dog, I want him to just have this big pattern. Like so. And here, obviously, I would go in and erase where it went off too much. Like that. And so I know that on some invitation cards, there's ones where it looks like it's possibly watercolor or something, and I want to encourage you to do that for yours as well. And the easy way to do that is actually to go on Google and type in watercolor Photoshop brush free, and it'll have these textures there for you that other people already created that you can use. So I don't have that right now installed. I don't have the watercolor effect installed, but I will show you how I can add other textures. So right now I have Kylie's spatter brush, for instance. Say that I want to add this. So I often work with layers, so I want to add a new layer first. And I want it to be white, and maybe this is a bit too small for me, so I'm going to add some paint textures like this. So when you look, there's going to be a lot of fun brushes out there, and I suggest that you really go all out on this and make a really awesome looking illustration or invitation, whatever you decide to do. And here you can add other things, of course. I added a bone and a fish on my example, and you can just do that by going back to your brush tool. Make sure it's not selected on this crazy pattern. Go back to the hard round brush and just draw whatever you want on here. So if I want a orange looking fish. I can go back. Kind of not doing the best job, but just draw that. And draw the bone. Something like this. Yes. And of course you'll have to go in and fix it. Yeah, so really experiment. I randomly just decided to draw a dog and a cat, but you can draw whatever you want and just have fun with this project. I want to see where you guys land and just have fun with this project.